Well, my name is Ralph. I'm from the Netherlands. I came to Belgrade actually the first time in 2004, but I moved here to live here in 2011. And the reason I moved here was actually because, well, simply I like it very much. I like the people, I like the liveliness, and basically I like the Balkan culture and the Balkan nature, and I like the region as a whole, and I think Belgrade is the only really big city in the region, so that's why I chose to move to Belgrade. And where my love for Belgrade and the region comes from, I think that goes way back to when I was born, 1977. I was born during the Cold War, when it was still impossible for people from the West to travel to the east of Europe. And in the 90s, when I became a teenager, that all opened up, and I decided to go to Prague with friends, and I liked it actually so much. Again, the people, the prices were good. I was 17 and the girls were really nice as well. So everything I was told as a kid about the Berlin Wall and Eastern Europe was all pretty negative. That was like propaganda in the 80s in the West about the East. So when I saw it for myself that it was actually the opposite, that it was really nice, yeah, I decided to travel more and more in the Eastern European region. The Balkans was then not very nice to travel to because of all the wars happening. So I started studying sociology and international relations, and I got the opportunity to do an internship for a small NGO in 2004, which was working in Kosovo. And that was the first time I came to the Balkans. And I liked Eastern Europe already, the countries like Czech Republic and Hungary and Poland and Romania, but the Balkan countries were even nicer, especially the hospitality of people. And yeah, I started working for that NGO in Macedonia and Serbia, actually all over the region. Then I started working for the city of Haag, The Hague, where I'm from, actually. And they also work together with countries and cities in the Balkans. So my whole career, actually, I was working in this region. And I always would start or end or work in Belgrade as well. And I always liked Belgrade the most of all the places. And at one moment I was just thinking, why would I travel all the way and go back to Holland? I just want to live there permanently. So I basically quit my job and in Holland, and I moved here with 2 suitcases, and that was it. No job, no money actually as well. I just thought, let's see what's gonna happen. This was 2011. And yeah, I started my own company because I had to do something to make some money, and that became a bike tour company, iBike Belgrade, where I show people around on the bicycle through Belgrade, mainly foreign tourists. This was 2011, when it was still not so touristic in Belgrade. It was hard to get here. There was no, you had to get a visum sometimes to travel. So there were not many low-cost airlines, for instance, that flew here. Until 2011, when everything opened up a bit and when I started. So yeah, this is how I actually ended up here, started my business, and luckily it was successful enough, so I'm still here after 14 years. That was the second. Getting married, yes. Of course, after 3 months I fell in love with a Serbian girl, and since then we're actually together, we're married, we have a kid as well, so that's another reason to stay maybe. But I first fell in love with the region and with Belgrade, and after that I fell in love with a girl. Yeah. I like living in Belgrade very much, now for yeah, 14 years almost. What I like about it is that it's, I don't know, it's always busy, it's never boring, there's always something happening, something negative, something positive, but always something happening. I'm coming from The Hague, which is arguably the most boring town in Holland, which is already the most boring country in Europe. So in the Netherlands, the streets are empty during the day. If you want to meet a friend, you have to make an appointment 3 weeks beforehand, etc., etc. It's very organized. It's very perfect. It's the opposite of Belgrade, you could say, where it's always a bit messy and chaotic. And as I said, there's always something happening, and that suits me much better. I like to start the day and don't know what to expect exactly how it will go. And yeah, Belgrade is also a beautiful city, or it has beautiful parts. It also, again, has very ugly parts. It's actually a city of two sides. You have very modern things and the newest cars and people walking with the newest iPhones, but you also have still the people going around with horse and carriage to gather trash and everything. You have people using typewriters or fixed phones. So I like also that kind of two worlds you're living in here, time-wise. And what I like exactly is going back in time sometimes by going to a kafana with friends, kafanas that which are Serbian restaurants where you eat, not only eat but also drink, but also talk a lot about life, sports, politics, marriage, anything. And dinners can last for 3-4 hours sometimes. And you still have these kafanas in Belgrade that look exactly the same like they did 40 years ago, 50 years ago. Even the waiters are almost the same, the dishes are the same, the tablecloths were not renewed for 40 years. And I like that atmosphere, going back in time a little bit. Forget that you're in 2025, but just feel like you're timeless or in the 80s or something. So I like that in Belgrade. You can find these places where you can go back in time. Not everything is new and modern and everything, but on the other hand, everything that's new and modern is here as well. So it's almost like living in two cities at the same time. I like that very much. There's also things I don't like. That's mainly the way the city is run, how it's organized. I mean, traffic is always a hell. I mean, everybody will say from their city where they live that traffic is hell, but I've been in a lot of cities and in Belgrade it just doesn't make sense sometimes. The planning and the organizing and why there's traffic jams or why there's cars parked everywhere. And that's one thing, there's too many cars. I'm a bike guy, I like to ride a bike. I think it's nice and fun and also very practical. But people here don't really think the same. They like to drive a car. So that also comes with a lot of noise and pollution. So yeah, Belgrade would for me be better if there would be 50% less cars, then it would be heaven. On some holidays here or when it's very snowy and when there's no cars driving, it's heaven, heaven here. So that frustrates me sometimes a bit, although I live here long enough to learn you should not get frustrated by all these things, else you don't have a life here. Just let it go and, you know, accept that it's not perfect. So that's sometimes a bit annoying. It also, probably that's one of the reasons there's a lot of air pollution. I never had a problem with that in the first years I lived here, but now that I have a daughter of 6 years old, I start to notice that that affects her and also me. If it's warm and inside your house but cold outside, you want to open a window, you can't do it because there's too much pollution coming in. Sometimes it's just really bad and you really feel it. So yeah, that makes me. I was never aware of that and I never cared about it, but maybe it's getting worse and that's why I notice it. And that's not a problem you solve quite easily. But I must say, the good things always are, there's almost more good things than there are bad things in Belgrade. When something bad happens, always something good happens right after and it makes me smile again. So, when I decided to move to Belgrade, I had to think what to do, how to make a living. I first wanted to make Dutch cookies on the street, so-called stroopwafels, which are cookies you can make warm. They're kind of 2 cookies with honey in between. But I found out that there's so many rules about making food on the street that I thought this is too complicated. Let's do something that's more simple. and where I can also share my love of Belgrade, my knowledge of Belgrade and the history of Yugoslavia, especially because I thought there was not enough attention for that part of history of Belgrade as well. So I did what any Dutch guy can do very well, that is biking, cycling. So I bought a second-hand bike. I made a small website with help of friends here, made some flyers and started to do bike tours, showing mostly foreigners around on a bicycle, and then mostly through the new part of Belgrade, which is the flat part of Belgrade, which has also some bike paths. The old part of Belgrade is more hilly and it doesn't have a lot of bike infrastructure, so it's harder to bike there. So I started to take people to New Belgrade, also an area that other tour agencies or tours didn't go to because it's not a very touristic part. It's mostly a part where people live in old communist blocks from the 1950s and 60s and 70s. So it's not necessarily the most pretty part of Belgrade with old houses and parks and everything. But for me, it's a very interesting part of Belgrade. So I could tell that part of the history, the recent history of Belgrade actually. So I was the first one to do bike tours and I was the first one to tell about that part of history of Belgrade, the recent history. And yeah, people liked that. I really didn't know what to expect. People here all said I was crazy, that I would take people on a bike through Belgrade because nobody really bikes here. But it worked, and I would stand in the main shopping street every day at 2 o'clock and wait for guests to show up. And then we would walk to a bike rental and start biking. And the first few days or few weeks, almost nobody came. I was just standing there every day at 2 o'clock and went home at 2:15 or 2:30. But yeah, slowly but surely, people started coming and even had to hire guides already the first year. And yeah, that just grew over the years until now. We're 14 years later, and we have a nice shop in the center of Belgrade with 100 bikes, a lot of e-bikes. We had in our most busy years groups of 20 or 25 guides working. So it became quite a big company. It expanded to Budapest even and to Vienna, where we did tours. But because of COVID, I had to close those shops, and we're now back only in Belgrade. And it's doing great actually. The aims of starting this company were not to make money, else I would have stayed in Holland and just stayed with my job. As I said, I moved here without anything, and starting a bike tour business was quite a big risk. But yeah, after 3 years, finally I started to make some money. But these were not my main goals. My main goals were to provide actually employment to people here, to also inspire mainly young people to also start something for themselves. A lot of young people want to leave Serbia and go to Austria or Holland or America or Germany to make a career there. But I think there is a lot of opportunities here. And the third reason or motivation is to promote cycling and to promote green tourism, or a more greener way of going around, especially in the city. Yeah, that's how I started iBike Belgrade, and it's still working. After 3 years of doing the bicycle tours, I wanted to show not only New Belgrade, and we also did some tours in the old part of Belgrade by then, but I wanted to show places which you couldn't go to by bike, and that were related to the history of Yugoslavia, the country of which Belgrade was the capital. The country doesn't exist anymore, but the capital is still there, which I find a very interesting fact of Belgrade. It's the capital of a country that doesn't exist anymore. And there was really no way to learn anything about Yugoslavia in Belgrade. There's a museum of Yugoslavia where there's some information, but no tours or anything. And I decided to reach those places which you cannot reach by bike. Let's reach them by car, and let's take a car that was built in Yugoslavia, which is part of the history of Yugoslavia, and that is the Zastava car or the Yugo car. So I started to do tours in cars as well, 100% aimed at Yugoslavia and Yugoslavian history. And yeah, actually I bought a car. I think the first one was maybe 500 euros or something, not too much, cheaper than a bike. And we started to show people around, and that also became quite successful quite quickly actually. Of course I could use the infrastructure and the knowledge I had already from the bike tours to start the YugoTour as well. Although it was a different kind of thing, you deal with cars and I don't know anything about cars. But yeah, actually over the years that became almost more popular than the bike tours. Because for the bike tours you need people who can ride a bike, and for the YugoTours you need people who just can sit in a car. So there's many more people who can just sit in a car. Yeah, that became quite busy, and we also noticed that big groups, diverse groups like a company with elderly people and younger people and people who were not so fit and people who were very fit, they could join together on the YugoTour. So we had tours with 25 to 30 cars sometimes. Which are great events in itself because they're all classic cars. I don't own that many cars, I own 2 cars now, but we have a lot of friends who own these classic cars and join those tours. And yeah, they're great fun. The same with the bike tours actually. We have people waving to us, horning, just thinking we're having an event, although we just have a tour with 10 cyclists for instance. And people are thinking it's some bike tour event. And with the YugoTours, the reaction was different than with the bike tours. The bike tours, everybody said it was impossible and I was crazy. The YugoTours people reacted, the local people reacted very emotional and very personal to the tours and to me driving the cars and telling about Yugoslavia. I met a lot of locals. If you're at the gas station, everybody wants to talk about your car. When it was built, they always have a grandpa or an uncle or a father who had exactly the same car in the same color. So it's a nice conversation maker. And people just open up their heart about Yugoslavia, about their memories of their car, about the trips they did as a kid to the coast in those cars. And so yeah, there are 2 different companies, but the aim is kind of similar. And yeah, they're both fun and I think interesting tours we offer. We're doing the tours now for like 14 years, bike tours, and about 12 years the YugoTours. And it's going very well after quite a tough time during COVID when everything was stopped for 2 years. So I'm happy we're still going strong and that more and more people find us. I want to expand. I also thinking of maybe moving out of Belgrade a bit, so to escape the busyness of the city and buy a piece of land and make some cool accommodation there for guests who visit Serbia or people from Serbia who want to stay there. So that's the next plan. Although, of course, we're gonna keep doing the bike tours and keep doing the YugoTours, maybe expanding them with different kinds of tours. So I invite also everybody to join. People can find us at ibikebelgrade.com or yugotour.com, or people can visit us at our shop, which is in Karađorđeva Street. It's next to the Danube, where there's a beautiful bike path where you can rent the bike with us and hop on the bike and see most of Belgrade, or the parts where there's bike paths at least. So yeah, everybody is welcome to join a tour, and I especially invite people who've been here already or who live here to do a tour in their own place, or if they know the place. It's always cool to experience the place from the perspective of a bicycle or from an old Yugo. And also, I'm sure we're going to show you places you've never been to and the stories you never heard. So yeah, welcome everybody.